Welcome to the Flip and Castle podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It's time for another deep dive.
Yes.
And today we're going deep into a world of, athletic glory, ancient rituals, and maybe even like some head-scratching, I didn't know that moments. We're talking about the Olympics.
Who doesn't love the Olympics, right?
Right. But seriously, how much do we really know about this global phenomenon?
That's what I love about these deep dives. We get past the highlights and really dig into the story behind the story.
Exactly. And we've got some incredible excerpts here, really painting a picture of how the games went from, a single race in ancient Greece to this massive worldwide event we see every couple years.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Totally. Like, we're talking one event back in 776 BCE, just a foot race.
Wow.
And that race actually gives us the word stadium. Like, can you imagine? Yeah. It's like the OG stadium.
That's wild.
Right. It's incredible to think something so simple would become what we know as the Olympics today.
It really makes you think about how much things have changed. Because back then it wasn't just about athletic prowess. Those early games were deeply religious, honoring Zeus himself.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So it's not just a casual fun run. It's more like, you're representing your city. You're competing in the name of a god.
Yeah.
Talk about pressure.
Oh, absolutely. Can you imagine the weight of expectation on those athletes? Victory wasn't just personal glory. It brought prestige to your entire city-state.
Wow, that is intense. So, okay, let's get into this whole religious aspect a bit more. What were these rituals actually like? Paint us a picture.
Well, we know animal sacrifices were a big part of the festivities. Just imagine smoke.
Fill in the air, the chanting of priests. It was more like this grand spectacle than just a purely athletic event.
Wow. It's like Game of Thrones, but with, discus throwing.
Huh. That's one way to put it.
Right. And speaking of intense, the sources we have, they really don't hold back on just how brutal some of those early events were. I mean, no helmets, barely any rules. It was a whole different ballgame.
Oh, yeah. The ancient Greeks were not messing around. They loved a good rough and tumble competition.
That's an understatement. The sources describe boxing matches with metal-reinforced gloves.
Ouch.
I know, right? And they just kept going until one fighter couldn't continue. No rounds, no weight classes, just pure unrelenting force.
It makes you appreciate all the emphasis we put on athlete safety today. I mean, those early Olympics sound like a recipe for disaster.
You're telling me. And that's where you really see the contrast with modern values. Today, it's all about minimizing risk, ensuring fairness, But the ancient games, those were a different beast entirely.
Speaking of beasts, pankration. I mean, even the name sounds like something straight out of mythology.
Right. It was basically like a mix of boxing and wrestling, but with almost no rules.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, biting and eye gouging were forbidden, but pretty much anything else were.
Okay, wow. I'm all for pushing boundaries, but that is another level. It's amazing to me that these games, despite how violent they could be, managed to last for centuries.
Right. And that's key to understanding them, I think. It's about looking past the violence and seeing the cultural significance. To the ancient Greeks, those games were a source of huge pride. Winners were treated like heroes.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Showered with riches and accolades and all that.
Exactly. So it wasn't just, Elsie, about winning. It was about what that win represented.
It was a status symbol for entire cities, right?
You got it. And that helps explain why, when they finally did end, it was such a big deal. Because it wasn't just the rise of the Roman Empire or the spread of Christianity that did them in. It was that the whole fabric of society was changing.
Okay, so let's get into that turning point.
Yeah.
Because after over 1,000 years, the ancient games they vanished. So the curtains closed on those ancient arenas. The games are benched for a good long while.
Yeah, over 1,500 years.
Crazy, right? It's like they just disappeared from memory. But then, bam, the Olympics get this revival. It's almost like a phoenix rising from the ashes, don't you think?
It really shows you the power of that Olympic ideal, that it could come back even after all that time.
Totally. And this time around, it's not about pleasing the gods.
No, sir.
Yeah.
It's about a world that's honestly kind of a mess. And the Olympics become this symbol of unity.
A beacon of hope. And we have Pierre de Coubertin to thank for it.
Right.
This Frenchman with a vision.
Yeah, our sources make him sound like a real visionary.
He imagines these grand games in 1896, right back in Athens, where it all began.
Talk about a full circle moment.
Right. But think about the timing. We're talking late 19th, early 20th century. Nationalism is on the rise. The world is on edge. It's not exactly a time known for international cooperation.
You're right about that.
So de Coubertin is basically trying to create this, utopia of sportsmanship in the middle of all that chaos.
Yeah, it was a pretty bold move.
It was.
Yeah.
Did people even take him seriously at first?
I mean, you can't blame anyone for being skeptical, right? Especially with everything going on in the world. But at the same time, I think people were really craving that sense of unity, that idea that sport could rise above politics, that could help us reconnect with our shared humanity.
Yeah, it's like that common ground we were talking about.
Exactly. And de Coubertin, he really tapped into that desire.
He must have been pretty convincing.
He was. And the rest, as they say, is history.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. The ancient games we were talking about, brutal. How do you go from gladiatorial combat to this idea of peace and unity? What had to change?
Well, for starters, the modern games were always meant to be international. Remember the ancient Olympics? Those were mostly a Greek affair. De Coubertin wanted a truly global event.
Open to everybody. That's a pretty big difference.
Huge. And logistically speaking, it was a whole other ballgame.
Right. Because back in 1896, you've got athletes traveling from all over the world, no planes, limited communication. How do they even manage that?
It's mind-boggling when you think about it, but it shows just how powerful that Olympic pull is, that desire to be part of something bigger than yourself, to test your limits on a global stage.
Inspiring.
It is. And as the games grew, they had to adapt. Remember all that talk about brutality?
Oh, yeah. Those ancient events were something else.
Exactly. So the modern games, they needed rules, standards, and a bigger focus on fair play.
Makes sense. Can't have people going all out gladiator style anymore.
Exactly. It was about evolving the competition.
So we're talking about a whole new way of looking at athleticism, right?
Yep.
It's not just about brute strength anymore.
Right. It becomes about skill and strategy and even artistry in a way.
Like the precision of archery or the grace of gymnastics.
Exactly. It's a different kind of athleticism, one that requires just as much mental strength as physical.
And then, of course, you've got technology coming into play. I mean, the advancements in training equipment, our understanding of the human body, it's insane how much science has changed what athletes are capable of.
Oh, absolutely. We've come a long way from running barefoot and chucking spears.
No kidding.
Yeah.
But even with all that progress, I'm curious, do you think there's still a connection to those ancient athletes? To that raw desire to compete. All right, so here we are, final leg of our Olympic deep dive, and honestly, my head is spinning a little bit.
I hear you. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, from ancient rituals to global spectacle. It's amazing how much the games have evolved.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder, right? With all the changes, all the advancements, is there still a piece of that ancient spirit alive in the Olympics today?
I think so. Definitely. That drive to push boundaries, to see what humans are truly capable of, that's timeless. It's in our DNA.
So even though we're not out there hurling javelins anymore.
Yeah, thankfully.
Right? But that desire for greatness that hasn't gone anywhere, it's still the heart of the Olympics.
I think you're right. Think about it. The roar of the crowd, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat, those are universal experiences. Whether you're in ancient Rome or glued to your TV, the Olympics just have this way of grabbing hold of you.
It's true.
Yeah.
And you know what else strikes me? Winning isn't everything anymore. Like, we've broadened what it means to be an Olympian.
Oh, absolutely. Look at the Paralympics, for example.
Exactly.
It's about so much more than just athletic achievement. It's about pushing the limits of what's possible, overcoming incredible obstacles.
And inspiring the world while they're at it.
Exactly.
It's about inclusion, too, right? We're seeing so much more diversity in the games these days.
It's not just a select few anymore. And that's something to celebrate.
Big time. And what about the Youth Olympics? Getting the next generation involved.
It's about passing the torch, both literally and figuratively, instilling those values of sportsmanship, teamwork, and cultural exchange.
It's like planting seeds for the future.
I love that analogy because it's so true. Sport can be this incredible common language that brings people together no matter where they're from or what their background is.
It's powerful stuff. And honestly, I think that's where the true legacy of the Olympics lies.
Agreed. That ability to connect us, to inspire hope, to remind us of our shared humanity.
So yeah, next time you're watching the Olympics and you get caught up in the competition, take a step back. Remember the bigger picture. Because from those brutal ancient origins to this global celebration of sport, the games have always been about pushing boundaries, testing limits, and showing us just what we're capable of achieving. And that's something we're celebrating. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
My pleasure. Until next time.